Did you know that nearly 60% of UK citizens believe immigration has had a negative impact on the country's economy? But is it really as simple as that? Why? In a country that thrives on diversity, is anti-immigration sentiment increasing so rapidly? This isn't just about politics or numbers, it's about real fears, deep divisions, and how immigration has become a battleground for the future of the UK. From the streets of London to small towns across the country, people are asking, are immigrants really the problem? Or is there more at play here? What if I told you that the economic downturn, media portrayals, and even political agendas are driving the rise of anti-immigrant feelings? Is it a genuine concern, or is this perception being manipulated? In today's video, we'll break down 10 key reasons why anti-immigration views are on the rise in the UK. Is it about job competition, cultural identity, or something deeper? And more importantly, what can be done to address this growing divide? By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of the forces driving these sentiments and why it matters to everyone, immigrant or not. So stay with us as we dive into this complex issue. Trust me, the truth might surprise you, and you'll want to hear what's coming next. Let's get into it. Number 1. Economic uncertainty and job competition. One of the main reasons anti-immigration sentiment is on the rise in the UK is the growing economic uncertainty and perceived job competition. With the cost of living increasing, wages stagnating, and unemployment rates fluctuating, many people feel threatened by what they perceive as an influx of immigrants competing for the same jobs. When the economy is struggling, it's natural for people to become more protective of their livelihoods. Job security becomes a primary concern, and immigrants are often seen as potential competitors for the limited opportunities available. This is particularly true in industries like construction, hospitality, and low-skilled labour, where many newcomers, especially from the EU and beyond, are willing to work for lower wages. This creates a sense of economic insecurity, where citizens worry that immigrants might be taking jobs away from them, leading to lower wages and fewer opportunities for locals. In some areas of the UK, particularly those facing high unemployment, immigrants are often unfairly blamed for filling job openings that locals feel entitled to. This can cause resentment, even if the broader economic picture doesn't fully support that belief. Brexit amplified these concerns. The vote to leave the EU was partly driven by a desire to reduce immigration, with many people believing that controlling immigration would free up jobs for UK citizens. However, this oversimplifies the situation. Many immigrants are essential workers, especially in sectors that the UK workforce isn't filling. When businesses can't find skilled workers, they either reduce operations or outsource jobs, impacting the economy negatively. So while job competition is real, it's often based on a misconception that immigrants are the cause of unemployment rather than contributing to the economy in valuable ways. Without proper education and dialogue, these fears continue to feed anti-immigration sentiment, making it harder to find balanced solutions. Number 2. Cultural identity and integration concerns. Another significant reason anti-immigration sentiment is on the rise in the UK is the growing concern over cultural identity and integration. As the country becomes more diverse, many people are worried about the preservation of British culture and how well immigrants are adapting to life in the UK. This fear is particularly evident in communities where immigrant populations are growing rapidly, causing some to feel like their way of life is under threat. In these communities, the rapid influx of immigrants can create a sense of cultural displacement, with residents fearing that their traditional values, customs, and even language are being overshadowed. Many believe that immigrants are not fully integrating into British society, and this lack of integration can lead to misunderstandings, divisions, and tension between locals and newcomers. Concerns about social cohesion also contribute to these fears. Some people believe that immigrants are forming isolated communities, creating cultural enclaves that make it harder for them to blend in with mainstream British society. These fears are often amplified by the media, which tends to highlight negative stories about immigrants, portraying them as outsiders who aren't contributing to British society or respecting its values. This leads to an exaggerated view of immigrants as a threat to cultural identity rather than a valuable asset to the country. Moreover, the rise of nationalism in some parts of the UK has made the conversation about cultural identity more polarising. Nationalist rhetoric often emphasises the need to protect traditional British values, which can be interpreted as a call for reducing immigration. This rhetoric reinforces the idea that immigrants pose a threat to British identity, even though many immigrants actively contribute to the cultural, economic, and social fabric of the UK. At the core of this issue lies the need for better integration programmes and more open dialogue about the benefits of diversity. Without these, cultural fears will continue to fuel anti-immigration sentiments across the UK. Number 3. Strain on public services. One of the major drivers behind anti-immigration sentiment in the UK is the perceived strain on public services caused by increasing immigration. As the population grows, many people feel that essential services like the NHS, education, housing, and transportation are becoming overstretched and underfunded. Immigrants, particularly those arriving in large numbers, are often blamed for contributing to this pressure on public resources. The NHS is a prime example. The UK's National Health Service has long been underfunded and facing staffing shortages. Many people argue that the increasing number of immigrants, especially from countries with different healthcare needs, is placing more demand on the system. Some critics claim that immigrants use NHS services at a higher rate, leading to longer wait times, overburdened hospitals, and a decrease in the quality of care available to UK citizens. While studies show that immigrants contribute substantially to the NHS workforce, the perception of overuse persists. Housing is another area of concern. With the UK facing a housing crisis, many locals feel that immigrants are competing for limited housing resources, driving up rents and making it harder to find affordable accommodation. Particularly in areas with high levels of immigration, housing demand has skyrocketed, leading to housing shortages and rising property prices. For families struggling with the cost of living, this can feel like an unfair burden, especially when the demand for social housing seems to increase year after year. Similarly, public transport systems in cities like London face increasing demand, and immigrants are sometimes blamed for contributing to overcrowding. The reality is that the issues facing public services often have multiple causes, such as underinvestment, austerity policies, and inadequate infrastructure, rather than immigration alone. Without adequate investment and better management, public service strain will continue to be a major topic fueling anti-immigrant rhetoric. Number 4. Political polarisation. The rise in anti-immigration sentiment in the UK can be closely linked to political polarisation. As politics become increasingly divided, immigration has become a key issue used by parties to gain support, often through exaggerated claims and fear-mongering. This political divide fuels resentment, with different political groups using immigration as a scapegoat for the nation's economic and social issues. In recent years, the Brexit referendum highlighted just how polarising immigration can be. The debate around leaving the European Union was heavily influenced by concerns about the free movement of people, with the Leave campaign focusing on the need to control immigration. The promise to reduce immigration was a major selling point for many who felt that EU migrants were taking jobs, putting pressure on public services and changing British culture. Even after the referendum, Brexit continues to divide the country, with immigration remaining a highly contentious issue. As political leaders increasingly align themselves with anti-immigration views to appeal to certain voter bases, polarisation deepens. Politicians often emphasise immigration as a threat, portraying it as a key reason for the country's problems, while disregarding the economic contributions that immigrants bring to the UK. These simplified narratives play into the hands of those who feel economically insecure, blaming immigrants for their struggles rather than addressing the complex issues at play. Meanwhile, some political groups advocating for greater immigration rights argue that immigrants enrich the culture and economy of the UK. This sets up a stark contrast between opposing viewpoints, which only strengthens feelings of division and distrust. In this politically charged atmosphere, it's easy to see how anti-immigration sentiment flourishes, fueled by media, political discourse, and misinformation, making it harder to find common ground on the issue. Number 5. Media representation and negative stereotypes. The role of the media in shaping public opinion cannot be overstated, and when it comes to immigration, the media plays a major part in amplifying negative stereotypes. From news coverage to entertainment, the portrayal of immigrants often leans heavily on fearful, exaggerated, and sometimes misleading narratives that fuel anti-immigration sentiment across the UK. In many news outlets, immigrants are linked to crime, economic strain, and social problems, reinforcing the belief that they are a burden on society. Headlines often emphasize stories where immigrants are portrayed negatively, such as involvement in criminal activities or being depicted as welfare dependents, while positive contributions made by immigrants are frequently overlooked or downplayed. This selective reporting fuels fear and suspicion, making the general public more likely to view immigrants as outsiders who don't belong. The language used in media reporting also plays a significant role. Words like invasion, flood, or swarm are often used to describe the arrival of immigrants, evoking an image of a threatening, uncontrollable force. Such language taps into deep-rooted fears and insecurities, making the issue feel more dire than it may actually be. On the other hand, some media outlets work hard to highlight the positive contributions of immigrants, showing their role in key industries like healthcare, agriculture, and tech, or celebrating their cultural diversity. However, these portrayals tend to be drowned out by the more sensationalist, negative narratives that dominate mainstream media, with social media platforms also serving as breeding grounds for misinformation. These negative stereotypes are repeated and reinforced, creating a cycle of fear and resentment. Without balanced reporting and positive storytelling, anti-immigration sentiment will continue to rise, fostering division and hostility. Number 6. The Brexit factor. Brexit has had a profound and lasting impact on the rise of anti-immigration sentiment in the UK. The Brexit referendum centred heavily around the idea of taking back control, especially when it came to immigration. For many, Brexit was about regaining control over the country's borders and restricting the flow of EU nationals into the UK. As a result, the issue of immigration became inextricably linked to the broader political debate on national sovereignty, economic security, and cultural identity. During the Brexit campaign, the Leave side capitalised on anti-immigrant sentiment, arguing that by leaving the EU, the UK could take back control of its borders and reduce the number of immigrants entering the country. The promise of a harder immigration policy resonated with many voters who believed that immigrants, particularly from the EU, were taking jobs, public services, and housing. These concerns were amplified by misleading statements and emotional appeals, such as the infamous Breaking Point poster, which depicted a line of refugees heading to the UK. This stark, emotional imagery fueled fears that uncontrolled immigration would overwhelm the country. Even after Brexit, immigration remains a central issue. The reduction in EU immigration has led to labour shortages in key sectors like healthcare, agriculture, and hospitality, exposing the economic dependence on foreign workers. However, the Brexit referendum has also intensified the US versus them mentality, leaving some to feel that EU nationals who came to the UK were taking advantage of a system meant for British people. While immigration from the EU has decreased post-Brexit, immigration from other regions, such as Asia and Africa, continues and in some cases This shift only strengthens the narrative of outsiders coming to take advantage. With the ongoing debate about how the UK should handle immigration, Brexit continues to fuel feelings of resentment and distrust. Number 7. Rising global migration patterns. The issue of global migration is another key factor driving the rise in anti-immigration sentiment in the UK. In recent years, there has been an increase in migration flows from regions like Africa, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe due to conflicts, economic instability, and environmental disasters. This surge in migration places additional pressure on countries like the UK, where public debates and policies around immigration often focus on how to manage growing numbers of newcomers. Many people in the UK are concerned that these rising migration patterns are simply unsustainable. Immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers fleeing war, poverty, and persecution are often seen as a strain on the country's resources, from housing to healthcare to education. While the UK has historically been seen as a safe haven for refugees, the sheer scale of migration in recent years has made some feel overwhelmed and unprepared for the changes. Social media and news outlets often amplify fears by linking migration to issues like terrorism, crime, and unemployment, despite evidence that immigrants contribute significantly to the economy and society. This has created a perception that immigration is out of control, which feeds into the belief that foreign migrants are a threat to local jobs, security, and the welfare state. Countries like the UK, Germany, and France are dealing with rising tensions between the need for international cooperation and the concerns of their citizens about the speed and scale of migration. While most migrants are fleeing dire circumstances and seeking better opportunities. The overwhelming scale of migration in the UK has created a growing sense of discomfort and anxiety, particularly in areas that already face economic and social challenges. Without clearer migration policies and effective integration programs, the rise in global migration patterns will continue to fuel anti-immigrant rhetoric and sentiment. Number 8. Fear of social change. As the UK becomes more diverse due to increasing immigration, there is a growing fear of social change. Many people are uneasy about how rapid demographic shifts might impact the country's traditional values and way of life. Cultural change can be unsettling, especially for those who feel that their national identity is being overshadowed by an influx of people with different backgrounds, beliefs, and lifestyles. This fear is a significant driver behind anti-immigration sentiment, as some perceive the changes as threatening rather than enriching. In some parts of the UK, people are particularly worried about the rapid pace of change in their communities. They fear that traditional British customs and values may become diluted or lost entirely. Concerns about language barriers, religious differences, and cultural practices can create a sense of division, especially when people feel that immigrants are not fully integrating into British society. These anxieties are often amplified by political rhetoric and media narratives that paint immigration as a force of destabilization rather than cultural evolution. Social change can also bring about competition for resources, such as housing, jobs, and access to social services, leading to resentment in local communities. In areas with high immigration, long-standing residents may feel left behind as they perceive that newcomers are receiving more support or opportunities. The result is a sense of displacement and cultural insecurity. The reality, however, is that immigration often enriches societies, bringing in new ideas, skills, and perspectives. Countries that are open to diverse cultures often experience economic growth and cultural dynamism. But until these benefits are recognised and communicated clearly, fear of social change will continue to drive anti-immigration sentiment, leading to further division and misunderstanding between different groups in the UK. Number 9. Perceived lack of immigrant contribution. Another reason for the rise in anti-immigration sentiment in the UK is the perceived lack of contribution by immigrants to the economy and society. Some people feel that immigrants are taking more than they give, particularly when it comes to welfare, public services, and job markets. This perception is often fueled by stereotypes and misinformation, but it plays a significant role in shaping negative attitudes toward immigration. One of the most common arguments is that immigrants are overrepresented in low-skilled jobs or are welfare dependent, which creates the illusion that they are not contributing sufficiently to the economy. The reality, however, is more complex. Immigrants often work in sectors that are essential to the UK's economy, such as healthcare, agriculture, and construction. These industries would struggle to survive without immigrant labour. Furthermore, studies have shown that immigrants contribute significantly to the tax system, even when accounting for their use of public services. In fact, immigrants contribute more in taxes than they take in welfare and public services, making them a net positive for the UK economy. However, these facts are often overlooked or misrepresented in the media and political discourse, which highlights the few instances where immigrants are perceived to be dependent on the state. This selective reporting leads many to believe that immigrants are a drain on public resources, rather than recognising the diverse and essential roles they play in British society. The perception of lack of contribution is also linked to economic anxiety. When the economy is underperforming, people are quick to blame outside factors, such as immigration, rather than looking at the deeper causes of economic stagnation or policy failures. Until these misconceptions are addressed and the true impact of immigration is understood, the perception that immigrants are not contributing enough will continue to fuel anti-immigration sentiment. Number 10. The role of social media in amplifying anti-immigration views. Social media has become a major driver in shaping public opinion, and when it comes to anti-immigration sentiment, its role is undeniable. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube allow information, both true and false, to spread rapidly, often amplifying negative views about immigrants. While these platforms have the power to connect people and share ideas, they also serve as breeding grounds for polarizing content that can fuel division and misunderstanding. One of the ways social media exacerbates anti-immigration sentiment is through the creation of echo chambers. In these online spaces, individuals who share similar views tend to reinforce each other's beliefs, often without exposure to differing opinions. Algorithms that prioritize content based on engagement further contribute to this issue by promoting posts that generate strong emotional reactions. And sadly, anti-immigrant content often performs well because it evokes fear or outrage. Additionally, misinformation and fake news play a significant role in shaping perceptions of immigrants. On platforms like Facebook, misleading articles or videos can be widely shared, painting immigrants in a negative light. For instance, false claims about immigrants overwhelming public services or committing crimes disproportionately spread quickly, even though these claims are often unsubstantiated. As people share these pieces of content without questioning the source, they further perpetuate harmful stereotypes. Finally, extreme voices on social media are often amplified. Far-right groups, in particular, use social media to spread anti-immigrant rhetoric and encourage xenophobic attitudes. These groups can recruit followers and incite hate, leading to real-world consequences. As social media platforms remain largely unregulated when it comes to content moderation, the influence of these extremist views grows unchecked. To address the growing anti-immigration sentiment, it's crucial to combat misinformation, encourage balanced discussions, and foster a more inclusive online environment that values diverse perspectives. Until this is done, social media will continue to fuel anti-immigration sentiments and divide the UK further. So there you have it. 10 reasons why anti-immigration sentiment is rising in the UK. From economic insecurity and cultural fears to the impact of Brexit and media influence, these complex factors are shaping public opinion and driving a divide in the country. But as we've seen, it's not just about immigration itself. It's about the broader social, economic, and political climate in which these opinions are formed. The real challenge lies in how we address these concerns without falling into divisive rhetoric. It's clear that the UK faces tough questions about its future, and immigration will continue to be a central issue in these debates. Can the country move past fear and division to find a more inclusive path forward? Now we want to hear from you. Do you think the rise in anti-immigration sentiment is justified, or is it being fueled by misinformation and fear? What's your perspective on how immigration should be managed in the UK? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We really want to hear your opinions. If you found this video insightful, smash that like button and subscribe for more content like this. It's just one click, but it helps us keep making the videos you want to see. Thanks for your support.